What's up, everybody? I am Kay Marie.
I am Lou.
I'm Mary.
And we are
Murked in the Midwest. All right, y'all. So we are back with part 2.
We back
in his house.
So at this point, you know the name of this episode is Attention Seeking Whore.
Because he really...
whore!
He has some problems, y'all. You know what? When he was little, nobody wanted to hear what he had to say. You know how, like, normally you, like, tell little kids to dance. Nobody wants to see him dance. No. They were like, nah, baby, sit down, shit.
Yeah, he was that kid that was like, shut up. Shut up. And so we are part 2, and we're at the point we were discussing how the police were kind of like just left dumbfounded with nothing. They had worked up this profile, got the lady involved, but where they gave her limited information.
And she really did a good job.
She did a good job.
She did a good job. Who he would have been.
Exactly. And so now we're at this point where it goes years where there's been no sign of him. He hasn't claimed any more victims. It's been 13 years since the original first killings, the Otero family.
And then later on, there was speculation that he was still active. But at that point in time, they didn't have nothing else.
Nope. At this point, it had been 13 years. He had pretty much gotten away scot-free. They weren't going to figure out who he was. On the 13th anniversary of the first killings, the Otero family, they started to put it in the local news and stuff, just like a kind of like remember what happened type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he got a little
butthurt.
Yeah, he was like, oh, I was in the spotlight once upon a time. I'm not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, and they had like rumors and stuff of what they thought happened. And he wanted to correct them and make sure they knew, like, no, that's not what happened. Or that's not what I did. I did this.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted them to know his version of the story that took place, or whatever version he felt like they should know.
Yep.
So he started communicating with the police and the media. And so it was like over the next 11 months, he was just sending messages. He had sent like a total of 10, and they were directly to the Ken Landwehr, who had been working the case pretty much. He had been on it.
And these weren't just letters, y'all. Let me tell you how sick this weirdo was.
Oh my God.
He was sending them pictures, puzzles, like this is a freaking game. Yeah. Like he over here playing games.
This the original Saw.
Yeah. Right. He was just he was a complete creep.
Yep. He had sent, for one of them, he had sent like the pipe with a Barbie doll hanging from it.
Like a reenactment of how the girl was found in the basement, but like with a toy and a pipe.
Yep. He was sending pictures of crime scene photos, pictures of driver's
licenses,
the
dolls.
That he had collected. And so he was sending all this stuff. And so he asked the guy, he goes, hey, can we communicate via like floppy disk? That tells you what time we in. But can we communicate via floppy disk without it being traced to a particular computer? Like if I send y'all a floppy disk, will y'all be able to trace it back to me?
They're like, no.
They're like, no.
We can't trace that dude. It's all right. Send it on in.
They like, go ahead. Come on. You good. We buddies.
Yeah.
Send it to us.
We like all the information you send us. Please give us a little bit more. You know?
So he goes, okay. And he sends them the floppy disk a few weeks later. And of course, they quickly traced it. And it led them to...
Well, they traced it because they found on the surveillance camera, there was a picture of the Jeep, too. Mm-hmm. And that was an identifying on top of the floppy disk that he sent it with.
Yes.
Probably DNA fingerprints and shit.
Yep.
They had a picture of his vehicle.
But they were able to trace the floppy disk back to the computer. And the computer went to a local Lutheran church.
Oh my God.
And that's where he was the president of the congregation.
Yeah. I'm not saying that we can't trust folks in church. It's really what it is people take institutions and their opportunity that they have of power and they abuse it. And it can be in any form of anything, but you got to watch. Just because he's the president of the Lutheran church don't mean he cool people.
Yep. And so at this point, they're like, boom, we have our guy. And his name is Dennis Rader. And also known as the BTK killer. So
Dennis.
They arrest him. And do you believe, like, he was so disappointed Like, he couldn't believe, like, during his interrogation, he could not believe that the police lieutenant would intentionally lie to him.
Oh my God. Oh my God. They would, the audacity,
Like,
the nerve.
And why he look like Heisenberg?
he exactly, this is
She's
what
so stupid. Girl.
this is what he said, though. He goes, I need to ask you, Ken, how come you lied to me?
Well,
It's Return of the Mac season in
you
this
been lying to
bitch.
us for 30 years, so maybe we could get 1 or 2 in there. Is that all right with you, buddy?
Ken said, because I was trying to catch you. Like,
Duh.
and then later on, Dennis Rader is like, that floppy disk really did me in.
No, it
Yeah.
didn't.
Set your ass up for failure.
I think you did yourself in there.
You did that, sir.
You did it to
that.
yourself.
All right. So as we said, Dennis Rader was arrested. He was officially arrested on February 25th, 2005.
Mhm.
And he was charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder. Of course, like, everybody was stunned. They could not believe that this man they knew was actually a stone-cold serial killer.
I'm sure it had to be shocking, especially for the people in church, for sure. Can you imagine? Like, think about the people that we know, right?
Mhm.
Because we all grew up in the same church, right?
Mhm.
And can you imagine just anybody that there's not one person in there that I would think would be capable of anything like that, but just somebody you trust. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, they're crazy. And they definitely have killed like 8 people, 9 people, 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
And they like terrorizing them. And then they like to laugh about it and play games
Yeah.
and puzzles.
Right.
And you kind of just go, there was nothing that, like, was
Were
it
there
like, I
signs?
understand that, to be like, you didn't see any signs that they were doing it, but
Mm.
then for it to come out that they did this, was it really shock as
Or was
to
it
like,
oh,
I can't believe this, or was it shock, or was it actual shock, like, I can't believe he did this? Like, was it I can't believe he did this, or I can't believe this is happening? Because I feel like those are 2 different things. To
I
say
feel like
that you
maybe-
can't believe he did this, like, there was no indication, nothing, he was the perfect person, like, there was nothing weird about him. But to say that I can't believe this is happening, like, there's still shock there to be like, oh, he was committed to this. But there's still a part of you in the back of your mind, like his wife, because he was married, right?
Mhm.
She had no clue.
You know what? Maybe it's like when, you know how women have that intuition if your partner is cheating, and it's like you can't put your finger on exactly what it is that makes you feel that way.
But it's something.
It's something.
It's something.
So maybe then it was back like an aha moment, like, oh, that's what that was.
Exactly. So that's what I'm thinking of, like, maybe it was like an after effect of,
And these days, you can't push shit past people, because a lot of people, they always play that innocent role. Like, so even if you in the church and you're like, oh no, he's a sweet old tie-paying man and he loves his wife and children and loves Jesus and he goes to church and he's so faithfully committed to his community, and them be the motherfuckers that be having their hidden motives
I mean,
sometimes.
it's very
But
true though.
And it's true. You know, people put on a face that they want you to see.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And so, he did actually plead guilty to the charges on June 27, 2005. He did escape the death penalty.
of course he did.
Because he committed his crimes before the state of Kansas had reinstated capital punishment in 1994.
Okay.
So his hearing was in August of 2005. And so this was the first opportunity for the relatives of his victims to confront him.
Oh, God.
And so, they said
Those
that
people, like, I really feel my heart goes out to the victims, their families,
Yes.
because that just has to be, you already have lived through this horror of one, probably not knowing where your family member was. They're missing for some time. Then you find out they're dead. Then you find out this horrible person has done all these things. Then you go through the trial and the rigmarole, because he went through a rigmarole. He did the same bullshit that a lot of them do. Let's play every angle that I can see how I can get out of it.
Yep.
And then finally,
to hear him then talking about your family member and how he killed them and the gruesome acts with no remorse, as if he's just talking about the daily weather. Like,
yep.
Like they said, it was like almost like he was giving a presentation.
And the fact that he was enjoying that shit is the creepy part too.
It seemed like he enjoyed not just the killing, but every aspect of it.
He loved the attention of it,
Mm-hmm.
the thrill of am I going to get caught,
Mm-hmm.
or the thrill of
and
I'm
taunting the
involved in
police,
this. Yeah, or
and
I'm
putting it in
smarter
the
than
media
police.
to make the public so scared.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so he had one of the victims he had discussed was Dolores Davis' body. He was like, "Yeah, I threw her body under a bridge, but I returned to it later. Although her corpse was decomposed, he placed a feminine mask over her face and photographed her body for later use in autoerotic fantasies."
That is so fucking disgusting.
And so he would do this while reliving the horrible crimes because of all the trophies he had taken from his victims.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said that the Otero family would serve him in the afterlife as his sex slaves. Like, he started talking about
what?
Oh, hell no.
I did not see that.
No, ma'am.
Yes, he claimed that the same would happen to another victim, Shirley Vian. He said that he would have killed her daughter and other children too if the house telephone had went off and made him exit quickly from the crime scene.
Oh my God.
He was like, I probably would have hung the little Vian girl. As I said, I'm pretty mean, or could be. But on the other hand, I'm very, I'm a nice guy.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, but this giving real Gemini vibes.
Man.
And you know what? So, I have a few friends
wanna
that are
look this shit
Gemini,
up.
and I think, like, Gemini's get a bad rap because
They
people
do.
say they are
They
two-faced.
do.
And I think they just have two sides.
They have too many personalities.
I don't think they have different personalities. I think that they have two sides. Like,
They're this person until you do this, and then they completely flip.
And it flips, and I think that it's like
Hold
just
on.
their ebb and their flow. But that freaking weirdo that these people gonna serve him in the afterlife. What afterlife does he think he's going to? Because I really just think
That nigga going straight to hell.
right, reserved for the flaming gates.
You're
not the
right.
pearl.
Oh Lord, he a Pisces.
Ooh-wee.
He's just so
but
weird.
It takes a point to like, it like goes into say how he was able to compartmentalize, and how he was able to put these into. This was the BTK killer doing this,
Mm-hmm.
whereas me, Dennis Rader, I'm the president of the congregation.
I'm a
this
Christian.
family guy.
First of all,
I'm the good guy. It's the BTK killer, because remember earlier he would describe it as this monster would come and I couldn't control him.
So definitely personality disorder.
I don't think it was that though. I think like he really just like
it's
fucking
giving
with
schizophrenia.
It's really giving as though he has some form of, if he's thinking that something is taking over him and that's what's doing it.
But I
Isn't that
feel like earlier he was saying it as in a way, like the way he kind of went back and forth, it's kind of hard to know, because we know that one thing for fact is that he was playing games with the police.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I do want to say I'm sorry to all the Geminis, my bad for that. But Pisces, we looking at you.
Get it together.
We looking at you.
So I can't say that I know necessarily. Like, I'm sure I have friends that are Pisces, but I've never.
I dated one.
And I don't know how you guys are, but I'm sure that you're lovely people. But
My
this one is
brother's a
making y'all look
Pisces.
real bad.
Pisces overthink.
My brother's a Pisces.
Oh, Dwayne is Pisces?
I'm a Pisces Venus, but because I'm an Aries, I'm not gonna be a serial
Why
killer.
y'all wanna
I'm gonna
make
just whoop
him
your
a
ass
Virgo?
and be done with it.
I always want to make everybody a Virgo.
You want to make everybody a Virgo.
But I feel like his personality.
Shout out to Virgo
is-
season.
Yep, nope, Pisces.
My best friend Christina is a Virgo. Shout out to you.
Yes.
We are also on this episode. We are going to be announcing our winners for the drawing.
Oh,
we
yeah.
did do those.
Are y'all ready?
Stay tuned for that.
You
Because
might
it is
be
gonna
a
be
winner.
Fun. Ooh, we got some gift cards coming your way.
Yes. I love a giveaway.
Right. It just makes me so happy. And so, this was what they were dealing with in the court. He was very cold and emotionless sometimes, but then other times he would seem to be upset when the family members called him a coward.
Because he was.
Literally.
Stating facts.
So, like, prior to sentencing, he had delivered this 20-minute narcissistic monologue.
Nobody wants to hear your bullshit. Keep it to yourself.
They kind of compared it to an Oscar acceptance speech.
Oh, God.
He tearfully admitted his faults, thanked his supporters, and astonishingly
Y'all Y'all can't see my face, but right now I'm just like, thanked his supporters.
He compared his situation to that of his victims.
What?
It's giving delusion.
I'm telling you, like, he had to have had something.
Something wrong up in it.
Something.
The elevator is not going all the way to the top floor.
It's getting stuck in between floors, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, y'all. So we had a little giveaway we were doing a couple of weeks ago to get some engagement on our podcast, and we will randomly do this throughout the entirety of the podcast. We don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll randomly be doing those, but we did choose our winners for the first go around for our giveaway. So
drum roll. So we have 2 winners. Real quick though, we're gonna go over what the rules were. You had to have followed our Instagram page, Merked in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have been a part of our Facebook group, but we did also post this on our Instagram page too. So if you saw it on there, you could have participated. You had to invite at least 5 people to join, and you had to comment done. And so
you could have multiple entries if you invited more.
Yes. So if you invited people, who of the people that you invited, if they actually joined, that created another entry for you. So
and
our 2 winners.
Also, we did not put names in the hat. We used the color wheel. No, we did not pick our cousin Pookie, our cousin Ashley and them, Bobo and them. We did not. We were fair and consistent.
And just to be sure, we recorded a video for you guys so you can see, and it will be on our TikTok.
It will be
Well.
posted.
Yep. So, winners are our first winner for the first gift card is
Chanel!
And our second winner is
Jovan!
So,
Thank you guys for participating.
thank you guys so much for everybody that participated. So, Janelle and Javon, you are hearing your name. You have 1 week from the day that this posts. So this is posting Monday, September 25th. You have 1 week from then to claim your gift. If we do not hear from you by then, we are going to do a redrawing to make sure we get these gift cards sent out. All right, guys. Okay, so just to give y'all a better idea of how this man was talking, we do have some of the transcripts from when they were in court. And so this was him discussing what happened with the Otero family. Those were his first victims. And so he goes on to say how he went in claiming that he was there because he was wanted and he just needed money and a car and some food. He ends up having the father tell one of the kids to put the dog outside and takes them to the back room and ties them up. So he says, well, they started complaining about being tied up, and I re-loosened the bonds a couple of times, tried to make Mr. Otero as comfortable as I could. Apparently, he had a cracked rib from a car accident, so I had put a pillow down on for his head.
Like you're doing him a favor.
Yeah. I think I put like a parka or a coat underneath him. They talked to me about, giving the car whatever money. I guess they didn't really have very much money. And then I realized that, I didn't have a mask on or anything. Already could ID me. And so
it still bothers me that he's talking about them like they're animals. Like putting them down. Like, sir, you are a freaking creep. You're the animal here.
Or it's like as if this was like an afterthought. Like you came into their house with the intentions of doing harm.
Mm-hmm. Well, it really kind of sounds like the way he's talking about it. It almost sounds like his intention was to get his sexual gratification. Mm-hmm. And then when he realized, like, oh shit, they can catch me. Now I gotta kill him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they asked, okay, what did you do to Joseph Otero Sr.? He says, Joseph Otero? They like, yeah, Joseph Otero Sr., Mr. Otero, the father. He said, I put a plastic bag over his head and then some cords and tightened it. Then they asked, was this in the bedroom? He said, yes, sir. They said, all right, did he in fact suffocate and die as a result of this? he said, not right away. No, sir, he didn't. He said, well, after that, I did Mrs. Otero. I had never strangled anyone before, so I really didn't know how much pressure you had to put on a person or how long it would take. But they asked, was she also tied up in the bedroom? He said, yes, yeah. Both their hands and their feet were tied up. She was on the bed. They asked, where were the children? He says, well, Josephine was on the bed and Junior was on the floor.
So they in there watching this?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
So then they go back to Joseph Otero and they're like, okay, so you put the bag over his head and tied it. He's like, mm-hmm. They said, and did he die right away? And he did not die right away. Can you tell what happened? He goes, he moved over real quick, and I think tore a hole in the bag, and I could tell that he was having some problems there.
Oh, really?
Dumbass.
He says the whole family just went. They panicked. They went and panicked on me. So
they panicked. Oh my God! I wonder, what do you guys think would make someone panic when someone puts a plastic bag over your head?
Gee, let me think. Maybe I can't breathe and it's uncomfortable.
But you would panic about that?
I want to breathe.
Why are you panicking though? I thought we were all friends.
Right, we're friends. I gave you a pillow. What is your problem? You're ungrateful.
You're ungrateful.
You're ungrateful.
And so he goes. So I had to work pretty quick then.
Whoa.
I got Mrs. O, and they're like, okay, what did you do? He said, well, I mean, I strangled Mrs. Otero, and then she out or passed out. I thought she was dead. She passed out. Then I strangled Josephine. She passed out, or I thought she was dead. And then I went over and put a bag on Junior's head. And then, if I remember right, Mrs. Otero came back. She came back in.
Because you can't even do it right. Because you suck at life. You horrible piece of crap.
Yeah, so then the court, they start redirecting him, and they're like, okay, wait a minute. So go back to Senior. You said that he tore a hole in the bag. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what'd you do with him then? He goes, I put another bag over it. Duh. Oh my God. Or either that, or if I recollect, I think I put either a cloth or a t-shirt or something over his head, and then another bag, then tied that down. They said, did he die? They go, well, yes. I didn't just stay there and watch him. I mean, I was moving around the room, and they were like, okay, so you indicated you strangled Mrs. Otero. And he was like, yeah, I went back and strangled her again. And that finally killed her at that time. So
the suffering of those poor people.
Yeah.
For his pure amusement.
So they asked what happens then. He goes, I got the keys to the car. In fact, I had the keys, I think, earlier before that, because I wanted to make sure I had it getting out of the house. And cleaned up the house a little bit, made sure everything's packed up, and left through the front door. And they went over to their car, drove it to Dillian's, left the car there, then eventually walked back to my car.
Now, why did he say he did that? Why did he bother taking the car over there? He wanted to make it seem like they were somewhere else, or?
He doesn't say. He does not say. He just was just using the car to get away.
Okay.
So he drove it to a decent area that was close enough for him to walk to his car. Okay. But it's the talking about it as if he can't really remember what happened, when we know that the whole time he was sending the police details, and he was keeping trophies and reliving these crimes over and over again. But now here you are in front of the victim's family, and you're like revealing all this uncertainty. Like I said, talking about it as if it was nothing. You know, like, yeah, they had the nerve to panic. I'm like, can y'all believe it? They went and panicked on me.
And it's really
for shame.
It's like, well, really, it's almost like his next way. He, in every aspect, he's had a way of terrorizing every person that has been involved with this case. But now the new victims are the family members, because he can pick at them too.
Mm-hmm. And with him saying that the person was like struggling because he gave him a pillow, all this other shit, it's just kind of, that's so weird to me. Like, it's like, how dare you? Because you did all this panicking, I'm the true victim here. Like,
no, sir. I'm sorry, you're confused.
I'm the true victim.
Yeah.
They made it hard for me.
So he goes on to confess about all of the murders, and about Catherine Bright, Shirley, Nancy, Maureen Hedge, Vicky, Dolores, the Otero murders. And So they're, now they're at the point where they're like, okay, well, now we clearly have the evidence to go ahead and send him off to jail. He's confessed to it all. So that got to be the end of it, right? You would think. All right. So just to give y'all a little bit more insight on the mind of Mr. Dennis Rader, when it came to the crimes as far as the sentencing, this is what he had to say in regards to remorse for his crimes. He said, well, at the sentencing, it's going to be very remorseful, apologetic to them. I will be working on that. That's one of the things that I am working on is a speech prepared for that. I think sentencing will be a pretty emotional day. Probably have to have a box of Kleenex that day. And
Planning your emotions, weird as fuck.
That's the nicest way of putting it. They then asked him, like, were you trying to get caught? Did you think you were too smart to get caught? He says, no, I was not trying to be caught. I just played cat and mouse too long with the police and they finally figured it out. Apparently, Dennis had other projects that he liked to call, but it was victims selected. The police claimed that they knew who those victims were, but they didn't release the names. So Rader told him, he said, I know it is a dark side that controls me. I personally think, and I know it's not very Christian, that it's demons within me at some point when I was young that controlled me. So yeah.
Blame it on the devil.
The devil made me do it.
The devil made him do it. And so that is just a little bit. Here's some other things that he said. So he did a taped interview with NBC for Dateline, and the episode is called "Secret Confessions of BTK." And so they asked him, as questions about like on the B in BTK, the bind and torture and kill. He says you have to have the control, which is the bonding. That's been a big thing with me. My sexual fantasy is if I'm going to kill a victim or do something to the victim, is having them bound and tied. In my dreams, I had what they called torture chambers, and to relieve your sexual fantasies, you have to go to the kill. They asked, on how he saw his victims as objects. He says, I don't think it was actually the person that I was after. I think it was the dream. I know that's not really nice to say about a person, but they were basically an object. They were just an object. That's all they were. I had more satisfaction building up to it and afterwards than I did the actual killing of the person. On the factor X, what caused him to kill. He says, factor X is probably something I'll never know. I actually think it may be possessed with demons. I was dropped on my head when I was a kid.
He had every excuse in the book. Dropped on the head, the demons made me do it. That was BTK, it wasn't me. Excuse.
Mm-hmm. And so they ask him, they say, you can't stop it. He says, I can't stop it. It controls me.
You don't want to stop, sir.
It's like in the driver's seat. That's probably the reason we're sitting here. If I could just say, no, I don't want to do this and go crawl into a hole, but it's driving me. And so this aired on August 12th, 2005. And Rader claimed, it was during this tape interview, he claimed, I'm BTK. I'm the guy they're after 100%. He confessed that the fantasies he described as having were almost like a picture show. One which he said he wanted to produce, direct, and go through with no matter what the cost or consequences.
So he is admitting he is enjoying this.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he likes to make his excuses like, man, I really wish I could stop. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Fucking weirdo.
He said
that's why he needs to be exactly where he is, jail.
He described the victims as a project. So he would say the stalking stage is when you start learning more about your victims or potential victims. I went to the library and looked up their names, address, cross-referenced, and called them a couple of times. Drove by there whenever I could. And when he was ready to make his move, he would come with what he called his hit kit, which was plastic bags, rope, tape, knife, gun. Yeah.
That's sick.
And so August 17th, he was sentenced to life behind bars. And so it was like, yeah, we know this guy isn't going to be torturing us any longer because now he's officially behind bars.
Officially in jail. He did get 10 life sentences, is what they gave him.
Yeah.
So,
well deserved.
yeah, even if he tries to whatever maneuver, he got 10 life sentences. He's dying in there. Unless it's crazy ass breakout, which I hope that doesn't happen. So, also, there was another part that came up just actually this summer in July. There was this, they called him the Gigolo Beach Killer. So, Rader is in prison in Long Island, and he actually wrote a letter to Fox News because, he just wanted to let them know how much he actually admired this killer. And he felt as though he was very similar to him, and that if there had not been the technologies that the police have these days, like DNA and technology to research and gather information, if they hadn't had that, this killer Rex Herman would have been just like him. He was basically his clone, is what he said. Those were his words, his clone, because he was, just such a great killer. All of this is cloaked in sarcasm, because this is really just sick. I really don't even understand how these letters got to Fox News. Like, his information that he is sending out of that prison, if he's sending a letter or, phone calls, all that stuff should be monitored. And I don't understand how you let a sick individual like this, a person who literally has no empathy. We know that he's killed all these families and people. I don't understand how you just let him send letters about how he's just so enamored by another murderer.
Right?
It's real fucking weird.
It just seems like there should be something that stop this from happening.
Every letter that go out that jail, they should be opening up and reading it. Period.
They do.
So then how do they get out?
Exactly.
Real questions. I want to know.
We all want to know if anybody has the answer to that.
Please let us know.
Could possibly happen.
And if you're the piece of shit who saw the letter and let it out, you fucking suck. You suck.
Everybody point and laugh.
This on you, your family,
and your cow.
Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe half the stuff that we were hearing. They had one of the people got up and revealed more information during the sentencing proceedings about like just stuff they found. So it was Sam Houston got up and talked about the murder of Dolores Davis. Rader had told Houston that while he tortured her, he placed a thin painted plastic mask on her face to pretty her up a little bit and make her look more feminine.
Can somebody pretty him up? Have y'all looked at him?
Man.
Heisenberg.
And so they said the mask had been painted flesh tone with red lips and darkened eyebrows to make it look more lifelike in appearance. He was so wrapped up in his fantasy when he was torturing Davis that he ignored her pleas when she begged him to spare her life. He admitted to Houston that after he killed Davis, he wore some of her clothes that he stole, along with a similar-looking mask and a wig. He would dress up as a woman and pose himself in various bondage positions and take pictures with like a remote snap camera. And in the pictures, he appeared distressed as if he were the actual victim. They were used to fuel his perverted fantasies, and he kept them in a huge stash he referred to as the mother lode. Most of the stash was hidden in his house and office and included such items like binders with cutout pictures of models and starlets such as Meg Ryan. Shout out Meg Ryan. Index cards with child swimsuit models on them.
How did his wife not see none of this?
None of it.
Like, I'm going to just tell y'all, so this is me. Shout out to all the men I've ever dated. Shout out to my family. Like, I ain't going through your stuff, but I just feel like if we got binders, like if somebody's constructing a binder, like my sister likes to craft and stuff, I'm like, girl, what you doing? What you doing over there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you organizing, you busy 10 hours in the room. I'm gonna pop in. I'm like, what you doing in there?
What are you doing in your free
What you
time,
doing?
honey?
And I know I'm mind my business a lot. I be over here, I mind my business. I ain't all in your business. But I live in a home with you, and you making binders where you scrapbook, and you got the time.
You have the time to dress up in women's clothing, put a wig on, this mask, and take pictures.
And nobody wondering what you doing.
Nobody wondering what he doing in that back room all that time.
Right. Kids don't come in like, Daddy, what's going on? Nothing?
Nothing. They said they found a doll collection, jewelry and clothing that he had stolen. And so they say because he would keep some in his office too, and they say none of his colleagues or his wife knew of all of this sexual paraphernalia that ever existed. They just didn't know.
I find it odd.
And when they thought that Houston's testimony couldn't get any weirder, it did. He told the court that other photos were found, and it was pictures of Rader took himself wearing a made-up mask and lying partially covered in a dugout grave that was initially intended for Davis.
What?
She was never buried there because Rader simply didn't have the time to do it. He claimed at that time he was already late for a Boy Scout event.
He wasn't late for a Boy Scout event. He was late for dress up in his dang old office. Let's be real.
Instead of burying her, that's why he just dumped her body under the bridge and just decided to revisit the kill the next day.
I feel like that's a lie. I feel like he had no actual respect for her. Clearly had no respect.
Then had the nerve to be creeped out by the sight of her body when he went back to visit it because animals had got to her remains. He was creeped out, quote unquote.
He was creeped out. Okay.
They said that Rader was like most other serial killers, especially in his aversion to taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
He found it easier to blame his bloodlust on his compartmentalized personalities.
Mm-hmm.
One side of himself that he claimed he showed to his family and the church, and the other dominated by so-called Factor X. And so the families of the victims, they were set to describe Rader in other terms when they got their chance to say their piece. Of course, they had other things to say about him, but
that's what I want to hear because I'm with them. Piece of shit.
got a list of things that I can call you.
He's like a dog turd, but not the actual dog turd. He's the white stuff on top of the dog turd. That's what he is.
Get over here and eat this white dog shit.
Yep.
And so he really just terrorized
everybody.
That area for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Even when he went, the periods without killing, they were just in fear because it was like it seemed like there was no method to his picking of victims.
Mm-hmm. And the letters.
And
the
puzzles and the extent of how gruesome the murders were. Like this was something that didn't happen in this town, and all of a sudden he had taken over and decided he was going to give them the name that he wanted them to call him. And he came up with this BTK killer. He was
the title is perfect for him. Attention-seeking whore. And I really believe it ain't nothing that says it, but I swear to God, I bet you he was in there putting the letters in the book, coming back like, oh, I found this letter and it's so disturbing. I mean, that's what his mission is giving. Mm-hmm. That's what his court performance is giving.
Yeah, everything is it makes you feel like him sending in the letters wasn't enough. Like he had to be involved. So I wonder if he was on their initial suspect list when they did all the testing for the semen and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he was on there and they just couldn't.
They couldn't believe it because he. Mm-hmm. So more information has also come out about him with some new murders. Well, not new murders, old murders that happened, but he is now also the suspect. So they are suspecting that BTK is responsible for these killings. And it was just discovered actually August of this year. The first happened in Osage County, Oklahoma. They announced that Rader is the primary suspect in the disappearance in Cynthia Kinney, She was a 16-year-old who worked at the laundromat in Pahosky, Oklahoma. They never did actually find her body, but using some evidence that they had before, which was actually that Rader worked for ADT Security Company on the construction of a bank that was across the street from the laundromat. Um, it was he worked there at around the time when she disappeared, and then they looked in his journal entry, and he had an entry that he labeled and called "Bad Wash Day," and on that description, he wrote about kidnapping a girl from the laundromat. Also, there was they had a photograph that linked him to Shauna Beth Garber, whose body was found in Lagana, Missouri in 1990. The picture was found where it had a red blanket that matched the missing person report of her. And they were saying that the FBI, they still have that actual blanket. So they're testing that obviously for DNA evidence. And then they are trying to build any type of circumstances that they can around that. The police then revealed in September that they have potentially identified a woman in a color drawing that he made that was quite disturbing. And it was taken from Radar following his arrest. So after he was arrested, it was a girl that was in a green dress. She was bound, gagged, and inside a barn. And the Osage County Sheriff, Eddie Verinda, he had told CNN that the woman that was in this picture, they believed to have gone missing in 1991. And she was gone missing from the southeast side of Kansas. And the sketches did look very similar, and the circumstances were very similar. So they have these new cases that they are trying to pull into him.
I'm sure just to give the family closure, if not anything else.
Mm-hmm. And this is what he said, which is crazy. So earlier, the team also uncovered what Radar called his hidey hole.
I saw about that, yeah.
And in his home, where his home once stood, there is materials that keep being found. Just more little bits of information that he pocketed and hid everywhere where they are gathering more things, which really does show like the ends that he would go to. And really, when he said he couldn't stop, it makes you think of that time period where they had nothing.
They couldn't find anything. It's like, no, I don't think that he stopped. And I don't think that they have all of the murders that he committed.
Mm-hmm.
Because this entire time, he always told them what he wanted them to know.
Yep.
They only found out what they did because he told them. It.
Yeah.
Because he would fill in the pieces for them or give them clues and hints or whatever.
It was a game for him.
Yeah, to let them know. And so I am very much convinced that there are other murders out there that are unsolved that could be tied to him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at just what he was convicted on alone, there were 10 murders that he was responsible for. And that was in a time frame of what, like 15 years? 13, something like that.
It's like to think that he just stopped
right
for 13 years, and the only reason why he spoke up is because it was the anniversary and this and that or whatever. It's like busy. No, he was. It was like this was probably a reminder of here they are talking about stuff that I did back then, like as if I'm no longer relevant.
And I've been doing stuff.
Still out here. I'm still out here. Like I said, it was all a game to him, and he was constantly leading them where he wanted them to go. They had the exact amount of information he wanted them to have.
So if you guys are wondering where you can see some of the things of his gruesomeness, if that is what you want to see.
We don't judge.
We don't. I mean, I like my murder stories, movies, TV shows, podcasts, all of those things. So in 2010, Stephen King did like a little short show called A Good Marriage. in which it was basically like a little dark history about him. And it was a forensic psychologist who published a confession of a serial killer, the untold story of Dennis Rader, the BTK killer.
Keep trying to put that on BTK.
I'm sorry, y'all. It was not them. I love them.
But I was about to say that.
Don't do it. So then there's also Mindhunter, which is on Netflix, and you can see stuff there. Because really, we've touched on a lot of the things, but there's so much to the story.
There's so much. Like you guys see, we had to split this into 2 parts, and that was still like we had to really decide what we were going to leave out and what we were going to include. There is so much more. Like there are detailed confessions on all of the murders that he committed. Like he had something to say about each one. And as always, we do include our resources and everything in the
notes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you can always go there to find out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's the story of crazy old BTK. Ooh.
BTK.
All right, pals. So this concludes the story of the BTK killer with his weird attention whore seeking ways. So you can follow us and comment on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio.
We everywhere.
We everywhere. We like Uber. We everywhere. Not really everywhere, but you know.
I mean, places.
We had a listener in Greece, y'all. Shout out to her.
Yes.
Shout out to her. Tina, shout out to you. So send us your questions, comments, concerns, and constructive criticism to Marked in the Midwest. One word again, just like lemon pepper mouse sauce. Anyway.
Because we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear.
And you can tell us if we're good, bad, whatever.
If you like something, if something didn't really work for you.
If there's a story you want us to cover.
Or if my mic is too loud, let me know.
I'm too quiet. I know I'm quiet. I'm going to try to get loud.
If you find my voice too.
You like my voice? It turn you on. Bye.
Bye.